Hello,
Hello.
how are
Are you ready?
you?
Baruch Hashem. Are you ready for Shabbos?
Almost.
Almost. You got your tie on yet?
No,
Oh,
but I just came from work, so
really? Oh,
yep.
mm, okay.
Wow, you not only shaved, but you chopped your hair very short.
Well, I got my money's worth this time.
Yes.
Usually they don't take too much off.
Yeah, so where's everybody now?
How far did we get last night?
Sorry?
Where did we get to last night?
Almost finished 24. And the last line, so he's leaving the last line always for the next day. Mhm. Hello. Oh,
Hello.
you're again in Hawaii, Harold.
No, I wish. Uh,
I just spoke with my sister. She says the first time in 30 years she has the heating on in Florida all day long.
wow, it's that cold?
Yeah, all
Yeah.
day long and all night long.
Oh, crazy. That's not good for the oranges.
No. Oh, Mr. Robo,
Hello,
Walter?
Hello, Walter.
how are you?
you're playing baseball?
Yes.
Hmm.
Golfing, golfing.
But that's not a golfing cat,
What do you mean it's not?
Could
is
be.
it?
I think so.
Hmm.
Uh,
Stop the recording, please.
Why? Hmm.
Because when you put on the
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay. We are on Chav Dalet Amud Beis.
Hmm.
Maski Fla Rav Papa. V'shiraim Didet. We are talking about, we have, we have three separate half isarons of flour. Remember, he lost one and then found it again. So they end up with three. V'shiraim Didei Mianecholim. How, if you give kmitza, how are you going to eat the shirayim? Ha'ika danka de koimitz loikarev. In essence, when he did kmitza, the other one, the piece that wasn't in the kli at that time isn't covered by that kmitza. How could you even place the kmitza itself on the fire? A third of that kmitza is for flour that was never designated the mincha. So Rav Ashi says that's not a problem. Koimetz bedaita the kohen tayim milsa. The kohen knows that when he does kmitza, he has to do kmitza for only in his sorrow, not more, not less. And the kohen ki kometz, and therefore the shirayim. Now the problem is you can't eat from the shirayim because we don't know which of the. Right now there's 1.5 isaros. He had in mind one of the isaros, but we don't know which one. So you can't eat it, but the kmitza you could throw on the fire. Mishnah. Tomorrow, 7:00, Daf, and
Sefer Esther.
8:00, Sefer Esther. Nitma koimetz. You did kmitz on a mincha, they became tamei. So lichatchila, you're not allowed to throw it on the fire. But if he krivo, if nonetheless the kohen went ahead and threw it, hatzitz maratza, the kohen gadol wore a headband which said Kodesh Lashem. Tzitz, for Tumah, sort of atoned for something that inadvertently was thrown on the fire. However, if you took the kmitz and you took it outside the azara, yotza, the kriva, and then you makriv, einat tzitz maratza. There's no ritzui. And what does that mean? You can't eat the shirayim, and the bailim have to bring another korban. Shatzitz maratza la tomei ve'ena maratza la yotze. The tzitz atones for tumah, but not for the psul of the invalidation of being taken out. Tanu Rabbanon, it says v'nasa Aaron savona kodashim. Aaron will bear the avon of the kodshim. V'chiyeza avonu nose. What sin is he bearing? Im tomer avon pigul. If it's a machshavas pigul, akvar nemar lo yechoshev. It says there's no way of resolving pigul. Im tomer avon noiser, akvar nemar lo yeratze. Noiser can never be accepted if you leave something over beyond 24 hours. We have a concept that if the whole tzibur is tumah, you're allowed to offer the korban. So that makes sense that the tzitz is maratza for the psul of tumah. Frek the Gemara Maski Flor of Zeira, Ema of an Yotze, Shuter Mechlol Bevama. If you're talking about that you have precedences for other leniencies, well, when Klai Yisrael were allowed to offer korbanos and abama, that's also Yotze. It was mutter to do it outside of the Azara. Why don't we then say that the tzitz was maratza for avon Yotze? Armle Abayam Akrala Ratzon Lahem Lifnei Hashem. It's an oven lifnei Hashem in. When something hegdish becomes tummy, that's a tumah that occurs in the base of Mikdash. But oven the Yotze is not lifnei Hashem. Look, Maskal Ravi Law, Ema oven small. We know that the kohen is supposed to do the avodah with his right hand. If you do it with the left hand, it's not good. And that happens in the base of Mikdash lifnei Hashem. And so maybe oven small shehuter michlol b'yom kippurim. Not only that, the left hand was allowed to be used by the Kohen Gadol when he went into the Kodesh Kadoshim. He carried the pan of hot coals in his right hand and the spoon of the Torah with his left hand. L'chatchila, you could go with the left. This is an oven that's sort of pushed aside. It's not pushed aside. It's l'chatchila. You're allowed to do it with the left. And Rav Ashi Omer oven HaKadoshim, it's an oven that's a problem with the korban itself, not v'lo oven HaMakdishim, not a problem of the Kohanim doing it, like doing it with the left hand instead of the right hand. It's a psul in the item itself, like tumma. Amar Rav Sima b'rei Rav Yidi Ravashi. V'amar Rav Sima b'rei Rav Yishi Ravashi. Ve'ema of balmum. We know that you cannot offer an animal that's a balmum. But there is a precedence. Shehuter mechlala ba'oifos. Birds, there is no psul of a balmum by birds. Domamar Thomas v'zachrus bebeima, that being a non-balmum and being male versus female are only invalidations by an animal. The ain Thomas v'zachrus ba'oifos. These are not invalidations by birds. So maybe the tzitz is meratzeh for animals that were balei mum that you offered. Amar lei alecha amar kra lo yeratzeh ki lo l'ratzon yelachem. When you offer a balmum, it can never be accepted by Kadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, there's no ability for the tzitz to be meratzeh for a balmum. Ton Rabbanon. Dam shenitma uzraka. So you did shchita of an animal. You have the blood. You're supposed to do zrika sadam, but it gets tameh before you did the zrika. So you're not supposed to throw it. Let's say the coin threw it. So here again, b'shogeg hurtza. If he did it b'shogeg, then it's accepted. B'mezid lo hurtza. B'med v'armamorim b'yachid. That's a korban yachid. Aval b'tzibur, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid, hurtza. A korban tzibur is meratzeh no matter what. Uv'orbit koichavim. When a goy sends through a shaliach, they're allowed to send a korban if the blood of that korban had been thrown either b'shoikig or b'mezid or b'oinus or b'rotzon, no matter what, lo hurtza, it doesn't become accepted. Because the pasuk says b'nei Yisrael, that the tzitz is maratza for b'nei Yisrael. But v'riminu, al-matzitz maratza, our Mishnah said, no, a Baraisa says, what does the tzitz atone for? Al-adam, v'al-abosar, v'al-achelev shenitba. For blood, for meat, like of an ola, or chelev, that has to be thrown that became tameh. Here it says, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid. Previously, we said only b'shogeg, dam is hurtza. Here it says, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid, bein b'oinus, bein b'rotzon, bein b'yachid, bein b'tzibur, there's hurtza, that the tzitz works. How come the other case said that it's only b'shogeg that it works? Am Rav Yosef loy kasha. Rav Yosi harabanan. Machlokes tanoi, the Tanya. When you have grain and you haven't given truma, ain tormim min atome lator, and you have grain that's tome, you can't use that tome dika grain to give truma for the tor. However, im toram, if he did, b'shoigeg trumoso truma. If he did it because he didn't know that halacha, it's okay. But if he knows you're not supposed to do it, and he did it anyways, b'mezid and trumoso truma. It's like a knas. Rabbi Yosef bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid trumoso truma. The Rabbanon make him a knas, but you see, Rabbi Yossi is lenient whether shoigeg or mezid. So the Baraisa, which says that if you did it b'mezid, it's l'shita chachamim and not Rabbi Yossi. Beimer d'shamis Rabbi Yossi d'loikonis. When do we see that Rabbi Yossi doesn't knas if you do it b'mezid the meratzit tzitzel achilos mishamis? That's fine. But the meratzit tzitzel achilos mishamis lay. But where did you hear that Rabbi Yossi held that b'mezid the tzitz was meratzeh for the mizbeach that eats these things? Vatanya, Rabbi Eliezer Oimer. Hatzitz meratzeh al achilos. The tzitz is meratzeh for things that are eaten. That means you're not allowed to eat it. But if the meat becomes tameh before he did Zrikas Adam, the tzitz says you can do the Zrikas Adam. And the korban is accepted. And therefore you still can't eat the meat. Rabbi Yossi Omer not tzitz moratzel achilos. But he says things that are eaten, the tzitz doesn't work for. So we can't say that the baraisa that says that everything is acceptable is by Rabbi Yossi. The Gemara says, you have to switch. Rabbi Eliezer Omer ain't tzitz moratzel achilos. And Rabbi Yossi Omer tzitz moratzel achilos, that allows us to learn Rabbi Yossi is the author of that second baraisa that says it works no matter what. Maskif la Rav Sheishes. Umi matzitz afkisla. Can you really switch the shitas? I'll show you can't. Vatanya. Yachal basar shenit balifnei zrikas dami. Let's say you have the meat of a korban that became tummy before you did the zrikas adam. You chayav mishum tuma, and you get kares if you eat it the tuma. If the person is tamei and Talmud Omer kol tahor yochal basar. Ve'anefesh asher tochal basar mizevach Hashem Hashem u'tumasalav v'nechbasa. Hanitir l'taharim chayav l'mishum tuma. A korban that is permitted to be eaten by people who are tohor, then if you're tamei and you eat it, you get kares. V'she'ena nitir l'taharim chayav l'mishum tuma. But a korban that isn't even allowed to be eaten by tohorim, you don't get kares for it if you're in a state of tum and you eat it. Oh, no. Or perhaps that's not how we darshan. Things that are allowed to be eaten by a tohor. Then if you eat it in a state of tumah, you get kares. And therefore, otzi aniyas salon v'sayotze. Thus, a korban that was left beyond 24 hours or taken out, which cannot be eaten, you wouldn't get kares if you ate it in the state of tumah. Talmud lomar asher laHashem riba. There's a riba. We include even these, even though they can't be eaten. If it was originally through the zrika, would have been permitted. Otherwise, you get kares. Maybe even other psulim that became tummy, you don't get kares if you eat it in a state of tummy. Well, noisro says hainu lon. That's the same as lon. I might think pigul could be treated like noiser. Only from some korbanos, miyate. So the Torah darshans that there's an exclusion that if it's pigol and you eat it in a state of tumah, you don't get kares. What logic says that lon and yotze are included and pigol is excluded? Because the Torah included something and excluded something. At least lon and yotze had they were kosher at one part once you did the zrika. Pigol, the moment you have mashavis pigol, you never would be at a shasa kosher. The intoimer basar shenit zrikas damim. What about meat that became tummy before I did zrika? And then the person who's tummy v'achalo la'achas zrikas damim. Then he ate the meat after zrika. Why should there be any chiyuv? There's no tumah because there's a tzitz. But this whole analysis says nitma in. All of the tzitz is maratza for tumah. Yotze lo. But not the invalidation of yotze. And man shamas ledomer in zrikas moelas liyotze. Who's the Tana that told us that the tzitz doesn't work for you? It's Rabbi Eliezer. So you see the Baraisa is Rabbi Eliezer. And we tried to say the Baraisa is Rabbi Shimon. It can't be. It's got to be Rabbi Eliezer. Uktani demaratzet tzitzal achilos. And so we tried to switch it to Rabbi Eliezer to say that it's not maratzan achilos, but it has to be Rabbi Eliezer. El amr of Chizda loy kasha. Ha, Rabbi Eliezer. The brisa that said it made no difference whether you were a mazid or a shogeg, that tzitz worked. Harabanan, who say that the mazid it doesn't work. Because they say that tzitz works. He says that tzitz works on things that are eaten. But the loikonis mishamisle. But is it clear that Rabbi Eliezer has stated in other places that if somebody does something b'mezid, we give him a fine? The Gemara says, in. Kihechi d'shamisle Rabbi Yossi, just like we heard that Rabbi Yossi does not knas, if you did b'mezid, shamisle Rabbi Eliezer, that he does knas. Or shamisle Rabbi Eliezer, the same thing. The Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer, oimer bein b'shogeg bein b'mezid truma so truma. So you see, b'mezid he didn't knas anybody. Maybe that's only by truma, because it's more lenient than kochim. Kochim, maybe by kochim he said there is a fine. Im kain ha aman tirmia. Then who would be the authors of these barises? So we're not aware of any other tanoi. So we must say that's Rabbi Eliezer makes no difference between truma and kochim as well. The first baraisa, where if you do it b'mezid, it doesn't work, that's the shita of the chachamim. The second baraisa that says it's okay, it's the shita of Rabbi Eliezer. Ravina Amar Tumaso, when it comes to Tumma, the tzitz works bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid hurtza. That's if the animal became tummy. But
Ernie, can I ask you a kasha? Let me ask you. The Kohen Gadol was always on the
premises.
On the premises, even if he's only, but he's not next to the korban or anything else like that. It still helps to mevatel the tumah.
Apparently so, and then we'll see. It could be just the presence of the tzitz by itself was maratza. You're implying that the Kohen Gadol had to be wearing the big day kahuna, the 8 gadim with the tzitz, and be present for it to work.
I'm not implying, I'm just asking.
Yeah, but that seems to be your implication. I don't know if that's true yet. We haven't gone into the dinim of the tzitz. I, right now, am under the assumption that the Kohen Gadol has to be wearing the 8 begadim, including the tzitz, for it to be effective. And if the Kohen Gadol is not on the premises and not wearing the tzitz, then it doesn't work. Unless we are going to be taught later on that the tzitz is maratza. I think we had a Mishnah that says that the tzitz works whether it's on the rosh of the Kohen Gadol or not on the rosh of the Kohen Gadol. So it's just the presence of the tzitz itself.
So you're telling me that there could never be any tumah on the base of Mikdash because of the tzitz, because it was there?
If blood became tummy before you did zrika, you are not allowed to do the zrika. The din was only b'di'evet. If the kohen inadvertently did it,
I get it.
then the tzitz is maratza, and therefore you can eat the meat of the korban, and the bailim don't have to bring another korban.
I understand, but it's a very
you shouldn't do it. It's tumah.
Yeah, but it's a very strong aura on the tzitz, and the fact that the tzitz wouldn't be on the kohen.
Yeah, because I think we're going to have that the tzitz is maratza bein ala rosh hakohen, but not on the rosh. We'll see that part.
Okay.
We'll have to get it. Here, let's hang on. the tzitz does not work to achieve its function if it's not being worn by the Kohen Gadol.
Oh,
Because it says it shall be on Aaron's forehead for their acceptance before God.
Okay.
It's tied to it being physically on the Kohen's forehead during the sacrificial service. So, some Talmudic discussions explore whether the tzitz works in specific limited scenarios, such as if it's merely present in the temple. The normative opinion is got to be he's got to wear it.
Who's Paskin in this?
No, it's a Chabad. It's just they bring you sources.
Okay.
But we'll see more later. But regarding when the blood became tamei, there if you do it b'shogeg it works, but if b'mezid it doesn't work. There's a knas. Rav Shila Amr rikaso bein b'shogeg bein b'mezid hurts. He says if you throw it no matter what it works, but tumaso, that's if the tuma occurred b'shogeg it works, but if the b'mezid was matami it lo hurts. Well, Rav Shila, what about the rights that it makes no difference? If it became Tommy B'Shogeg, and then Zroko, Bein B'Shogeg, Bein B'Mezid Hurts. Okay, we'll finish tomorrow. Very good, everybody.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night.
Shkoyach.
Ciao.